As official Washington grapples with the on-the-record allegation of sexual assault against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh, Kavanaugh is vehemently denying the accusation. He says his accuser is lying. And so it's important to remember the context here for all this. Kavanaugh was nominated by the president, who bragged of sexual assault and who suggested that the women accused him of sexual impropriety were too ugly for him to have assaulted. He's a man who stood behind Senate candidate Roy Moore even after Moore was credibly accused of sexually assaulting a woman when she was 14 and using his position as a local prosecutor to date and attempt to date teenagers. A man who brought into the White House Bill Shine, who was drummed out of Fox News after reportedly enabling and covering up Roger Ailes' sexual harassment there. Shine denies doing so. And while Donald Trump still occupies the White House, there has been a seismic cultural shift that has meant allegations of sexual misconduct by powerful men are now taken more seriously than they were in 1991, when Anita Hill's credible allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment against Clarence Thomas were greeted with skepticism and even scorn by members of the all-male Senate Judiciary Committee. Of course, some things haven't changed, like Anita Hill. Kavanaugh accuser Christine Blasey Ford was reluctant to come forward for fear of being dragged through the mud. And like Anita Hill, she will see plenty of men if and when she testifies. There is not a single woman among the 11 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee. With me now for more on this moment, Sherrilyn Ifill, President Director Counsel NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, and Nan Aaron, President of the Alliance for Justice. And both of you lived through and watched the Thomas Hill hearings. Nan, let me start with you. It almost feels uncanny. A lot of people, I think, have their sort of heart in their mouth today about what's happening and what's going to happen on Monday. What lessons have you learned? What's different now?
Oh, I remember sitting in that hearing room watching Anita Hill endure character assassination day after day from Republicans. Like Dr. Ford, like Anita Hill, was a reluctant person to come forward. The timing is very similar, but the circumstances are changed. One, I think people really have a much better understanding of what a woman goes through in telling her story. I think certainly this is a different cultural moment. As you said, we've seen powerful men be taken down from jobs, and we will see Democrats who, unlike the Democrats who sat in that hearing of Anita Hill's, very quiet, very silent, these Democrats have shown by the hearings in Brett Kavanaugh that they will stand their ground.
They're also not all men, which I think is going to make a difference. I've talked to a lot of people today about all this, and there is a feeling that I think a rare moment of unity, that people feel a sense of dread about this, but from all sorts of different ideological directions. Why do you think that is?
Because we shouldn't be here. I mean, I appeared on your show in June, right after Justice Kennedy decided to retire, and I said then that it was critical that we not rush this process forward. That was before Brett Kavanaugh was named. And then the president selected Brett Kavanaugh, a man with a very long public life and a very detailed public record. And we have seen ever since the moment of that announcement, the Senate, the Republicans in the Senate, Chairman Grassley, behave in ways that have driven through all of the guardrails that are designed to protect us from a moment like this. The advise and consent function of the Senate with regard to Supreme Court justices is designed to allow the Senate to help to kind of share this responsibility with the president. And that power, the power to evaluate the nominees, is delegated to the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's important. And so we've been saying all along that we needed a process that would ensure that this nominee would be fully vetted. And there was knowledge that there were problems with this nominee because of testimony he'd given before at his confirmation hearings when he was trying to be a D.C. Circuit judge.
Mitch McConnell warned the White House away from him, which I think is very interesting.
That this was going to be problematic. And you saw what the Republicans did. They had to push through almost every rule. I sat in the hearing room. I sat at the markup last week, and what you saw was Chairman Grassley pushing through the committee rules, disrespecting his colleagues. We saw all of these documents that were declared committee confidential. We saw 42,000 documents dropped the night before the hearing. We saw the hearing set for September 4th, even though the National Archives couldn't make the documents available until the end of October. Everything about this has been an abdication of responsibility. And that's why we're in this moment. That's why the country's dreading this moment.
My question to you, Nan, is, I mean, now this Monday public hearing, and there's a sort of question of like, can that be the domain in which this is fairly adjudicated in any way?
I think it's going to be difficult. After all, two of the Republicans on the committee now, who include Orrin Hatch, were there during Anita Hill's hearing. I think there needs to be pressure put, scrutiny on Brett Kavanaugh rather than on Dr. Ford. And I think every senator who champions women, who's an advocate for women, at the end of the day and at the end of that hearing, simply cannot vote for Brett Kavanaugh for Supreme Court after hearing the testimony from both.
But I know that is your view, Nan, and it's yours, independent of the accusation. And what do you think? What do you say to people who say, look, liberals and folks who oppose Brett Kavanaugh because of how he will rule as a Supreme Court justice are just going to use this as another means to stop a nomination they were already devoted to defeating?
Look, we know how to do, I think, certainly in the area of law, how to judge something like this. First of all, it begins, as Senator Hirono suggested earlier on your program, with a real investigation.
Right.
Where is the FBI investigation? This is not supposed to be something that's thrown into the cauldron of partisan divide. This is a real accusation about a real action that harmed a girl, and we should understand what exactly happened. So the first thing that should happen, if the Judiciary Committee is to be serious, is that there's a real investigation that the FBI undertakes. And then, as Senator Hirono suggested, a report should come to the committee, and that should inform the kinds of questions, the kind of hearing, the kind of interaction they have with the witnesses.
That seems to me as a much more sensible process than what we were rushing headlong into on Monday. Sherilyn Ifill and Nan Aaron, thank you both for being with me. Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.